Go to getamazonnow.com and give a gift card.
Welcome to humanity. This is hour one.
Whatever it takes, we got to say whatever it takes is what it took.
This is Brock Lesnar, and you're listening to Fight Net Radio.
Yo, hi, this is Sugar Ray Leonard, and you listen to Fight Net Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to listen to Fight Net Radio.
Lee-Honish, what's your name? I know how am I supposed to know you?
This is Frank Shamrock. You're listening to Fight Net Radio.
Hi, this is Nia, the Knockout St. John. You're listening to Fight Net Radio, and there's no way I would ever touch Lee.
This is Chuck Jackson.
I am Stephen Bonner, and you're listening to Fight Net Radio.
Dan Henderson, you're listening to Fight Net Radio.
Everybody, welcome to Fight Net Radio, where Lee's burning every bridge there is out there. All right.
Hi, this is Manny Pacquiao. I'll fight anybody on fightnetradio.com.
You're playing touch butt with that dork in the park.
Video. I am joined by JP Delfino. How do you say it on the show? Because it's MMA Fight Radio. All you got to do is type in MMA Fight Radio. That'll put them right on the site, right?
Absolutely. MMA Fight Radio. You can check us out there. It's MMAfightradio.com online. You can also check us out on social media. Just type in the words MMA Fight Radio, 3 separate words.
And I am guessing all of your Android and Apple devices congruently.
100%. You can do it on Android. You can do it on Apple. We actually now can be heard on TuneIn Radio, so you can check it out anywhere.
Nice. JP is going to be my court bower. Does that make sense? That if I was doing pro wrestling, you'd be my court bower. You are my go-to guy. You are in the trenches. You are still doing it week in and week out. I admit it. I'm a voyeur. I stick to my boxing show. I occasionally talk MMA. I seem to talk more BJJ lately. But I cannot pass up the fact, because this is a true story. So we all know Mr. Snowden, and we all know Crazy Ryan Loco. So they've got a new show, and I don't want to plug that too much. I've done it on social media. But here's what happened this weekend. This is the reason why I'm so amused by it, and I'm actually tracking somebody down to talk about it. There was almost no social media traffic about this UFC 208 at all. Like, I saw it on Twitter. Snowden was putting it out there. Everybody was kind of like putting out feelers to see if anybody was even remotely interested. And my joke was Fight to Win was getting more social media activity than UFC 208. How was it for you? I mean, by your listeners, did people bite on the UFC 208 card?
The hardcores did. The casuals, not so much. And, I mean, the thing about it is you're introducing a new division. You've got two females fighting that aren't named Ronda Rousey, which she's the only one that really seems to move the needle anymore. And, I mean, I know Holm beat Rousey, but she's also coming off back-to-back losses heading into it. It just wasn't – I mean, me as an MMA fan and being I do this for a living, it was something I was interested in and excited for. But for the casual, the general fan, it just wasn't a big popular card. It wasn't a card that really had that one fight that stood out to you that said, hey, I have to drop my $60 to watch this.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the card and going back through it as I watched it, nobody did anything to set themselves apart on this card. It was a lot of... How do I say this without putting it all down? Because I'm a grappler. I mean, it was pretty mundane grappling. It was a lot of it. It was there. It's not that UFC fight card where you could go, well, at the very least, you could go back and watch this. For the first time in a while, it seems, for a UFC fight card, for a numbered UFC fight card, this one just didn't have anything that you could go back and go, yeah, that's the YouTube video of the week. This just didn't lack anything. It lacked it across the board.
And, if this was, honestly, if this was a UFC fight night on Fox Sports 1, it probably wouldn't be looked down upon as it is now. But you're absolutely right. This wasn't a pay-per-view. To me, it wasn't a pay-per-view quality card. You're introducing a new division, like I said, with two women that Holm's a little known, like I said, but Holm's known for beating Rousey. They're reminding, unless you're a hardcore, who follows Muay Thai, you don't, she's not a name in the division either. So it was just tough. And then you look at the undercard, it was a good card, don't get me wrong, but was it a pay-per-view good card? I don't think it was. And the fact that they spent more time, the buzz this weekend was more about, is it going to happen or is it not going to happen fight between Mayweather and McGregor. That seemed to be getting more press than the fight that was actually going on.
Okay, well, I can discuss that from the boxing end, so I guess I might as well tease that from both ends, and then we'll come back to this card really quickly. So from the MMA end, okay, are people biting on this, on the MMA end?
They are, and they shouldn't be, because
right.
The simple facts. McGregor is a good striker for MMA. He's got good, he uses his kicks, he uses his movement, he uses his, his head motion. I mean, he's very good for MMA. But as we learned when, James Toney came over to MMA from boxing, just because you're a great boxer doesn't mean you're going to be a great MMA fighter. And the opposite end of that goes. I mean, he's not fighting some chump. He's fighting a guy that probably the greatest boxer I've seen in my lifetime. 49-0. The guy's never even been barely touched. And we're talking a guy that's fought, Pacquiao. He's fought almost a who's who. Those guys could do nothing to him. Why any MMA fan thinks that McGregor stands an ice cold chance in hell is beyond me.
They just casual fans, right? And they had brought up that exact same scenario, and they said, what do you think? I said, well, whose perspective do you want? Do you want the crazy MMA fans who believe that McGregor's going to be able to corner this guy and rough him up for a couple of seconds and maybe catch him? Or do you want the truth, which is the greatest defensive fighter ever in boxing who doesn't get hit by world-class strikers at any level? How do you believe that he's going to get touched at all in a fight for any distance? And that's really what it comes down to. I'm shocked at how many, I'm shocked at Kevin Aioli putting another story out. I'm shocked at our communities, like the boxing side and I sit here objectively. You know what it reminds me of? James Toney and Randy Couture Part 2. Here we go again. For those that don't remember, James Toney went into the octagon to challenge Randy Couture. Randy basically did a first-year single leg straight out of the textbook. He scooped so far down that I think he actually dragged his leg like he was doing a drill. Came over, and I think he caught him with I want to say it was a heel hook, but it could have been. Was it a heel hook? I think it
was a choke. I think he choked him out, to be brutally honest.
Was it?
I think he choked him out. But regardless, your point's taken.
Yes, yeah, no, I'm with you. But it was less than 30 seconds, maybe. And now we've got the reversed engineered scenario where, okay, so help me out. I've always said this, that why do MMA fans, are there really a crowd of MMA fans, or that's not fair. Are there fans who really believe that McGregor has a shot at this? Like he could win this somehow magically?
Surprisingly, yes. Yes. There's a contingent of fans that think that that he's got a good chance of winning this, and it's absurd. And I mean, I'm MMA all the way. I will always root for an MMA fighter over a boxer. That's
right.
Just this is my sport. No disrespect.
No. Ride or die MMA. I hate to tell everybody in boxing, because I cover both. I just stand in the middle of the road. Here's the thing. Boxing is not putting the best guys against the best guys. The UFC format is always throw everybody into a cage and let the cage figure it out.
Right.
That's what separates the two. And the PVC has destroyed boxing further. And now we're at a point where we're literally talking and entertaining the concept of a guy with no boxing background. Okay, I'll say it again, MMA fans. He doesn't have a boxing background. He has a striker's background. He doesn't have... I did this since I was 3 years old, hitting tennis balls on a string. It's kind of like, it's not even apples and oranges. It's like apples and watermelon. It's
absolutely. It's it's like you said. I mean, it's two different worlds. I mean, just like the same thing. If Floyd Mayweather came over to MMA, which he'll never do because he knows better, he wouldn't last. He would have the James Toney treatment. He'd have the CM Punk treatment.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's So, I mean, the thing is, and I'm gonna give you an example, and I'm gonna break this down for the sports fans that may be listening to this. Nobody wants to see the New England Patriots play the New York Yankees in a baseball game.
Yes.
Nobody wants to see the Golden State Warriors play the Miami Dolphins in a football game.
But they're athletes. No, but they're athletes. They'll be
They're
in
athletes.
it. Is it flag? What am I missing here? That is great. That is the best analogy ever. Now, here's the big question. Has the corporate buyout started to hurt the UFC? Are they just cranking out too much product where we're entertaining this? And now we've got a UFC 208 card that I admit that the main event got a little screwed up. Chris may have been using, let's use the words correctly, allegedly using performance-enhancing chemicals. I don't think that Holly has drawing power on her own. No disrespect to Holly, she's a great fighter, but that's not what this fight was about. This fight was about Chris and Holly, and we didn't get that. We got a low blow, not even a good fight. We got a low blow in this whole weird, wacky 5-round fiasco of a main event. Did the low blow? Well, let's talk about the main event. Let's reverse engineer the card, or should I disconnect the whole thing? Let's start from the beginning. Is the UFC getting too watered down from your perspective?
Yes and no. Yes and no in a sense that, I mean, I know why they're making more titles. You know what I mean? I know why they're making more titles and introducing more belts and having more events. That's revenue. But I've been around for a long time in this sport. To me, I'd rather see 6 super cards a year than a card every weekend where there's fighters on there that Lee, I don't know who they are. And I'm pretty diverse in MMA. I'm pretty, I have a pretty good grasp on the who's who. Right. I mean, this card, for example, I went on the undercard, and I asked myself at least twice, who the hell is that? You know what I mean? And it's so, in a sense, it is getting oversaturated. It is getting to be too much, and then they're putting fights almost for the sake of putting fights on. A couple of weeks ago, they were out here. And look, I love BJ Penn. He's one of my favorite fighters that ever stepped foot inside the octagon. But that was almost like leading, and I tried to defend this when, because maybe I'm a BJ fan and I let my judgment cloud me. They sent that guy out there to get killed.
Yes,
after,
they did.
2 years on the shelf, they sent him out there with a fresh lion, and the fight was scary. I mean, that was as bad as I felt watching a fight in a long time. I mean, that shouldn't have happened, and it shouldn't be to the point to where there's a fight every weekend because, again, you get people that don't deserve to be in the UFC at that time that are getting thrown to the wolves far too soon and far before they should be.
I completely agree. I'm sure you're in the position that I am, which is when you go on the street and, oh, that's what you do for a living. Who do you think's going to win that? Same thing for me when I go into, into BJJ. When people are asking me, well, what do you think is going to happen? I said, why? This is what I said before the fight, which is, why would a world-class grappler do anything but grapple? Then that occurs. And then you have to come back the next day and go, same answer. Why would a world-class grappler try to strike? And BJ Penn has been, and I've seen this in what I call the BJ Penn farewell run. Somebody has convinced BJ Penn that he can strike. I don't know where it happened along the way in those last couple of fights, but am I wrong from my perspective? But it seems like the last fights, the ones that he's lost, are all because BJ wants to prove that he can strike. Or has MMA, here's the question, it's a good question, has MMA, the style of MMA, caught up to BJ Penn?
See, if you look at the people he's lost to, though, one mentioned the style of MMA and whether the game has passed BJ by.
Right.
You look at the people he's lost to. Frankie Edgar 3 times. Frankie Edgar is the best 145-pounder, not named Jose Aldo in the sport.
Right. Not
named Conor McGregor in the sport. I mean, this guy is elite. He's a Hall of Famer. He was a Hall of Famer at 155. Now he's even better at 145. He lost to Nick Diaz. We all know his reputation. Even this Rodriguez. I mean, this Rodriguez is legit. This kid's got a bright future. He's, I shudder to think when this guy really hits his stride of what he's capable of doing. The thing is, BJ has been jumping headfirst into the deep end. He shouldn't have been in there with somebody like Yair after a 2-year layoff. He should have been in there with somebody like Dennis Seaver or the Korean Zombie, or, and maybe that's even a bit high, but he should have been in there with a less